Hey guys, welcome back. As you can tell, I'm in yet another little environment, a little place. Shaved the mustache, got a haircut, like we really are out here. I'm actually at school right now. I have midterms next week, and so I'm studying, but I needed a study break. And so here we are. Today, today we're talking about The Richest Man in Babylon. I realized in my last video I didn't tell you what the next one was going to be. The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. And this is just, like when you're in a business school, there are just a couple of books that are referenced often. And so, this one isn't referenced often, but I had heard of it before. And so I just decided to buy it because, it's been on my to be read list. Anyway, it doesn't matter how I acquired it or why I'm reading it, but I did. And now we're going to talk about it. This is my bookmark, if you're wondering. A little background on the book. Also, The Richest Man in Babylon. Doesn't that title is a very good title. This book was published in 1926, literally 97 years ago. 96 years ago. Wait, you guys, I'm tripping. 97. It's 97 years ago. And it says right here at the very back, I didn't know this as I was reading it, but it makes a whole lot of sense now. Sorry, let me scoot up a little bit. This book is actually just a compilation of pamphlets. And I was like, why isn't this story flowing? And it's because each chapter is literally its own pamphlet. So that's the reason why. And it talks all about money. That's the whole thing. The richest man of Babylon. He's not like a real rich man. It's just because Babylon is, ancient Babylon was so rich and they had these luxurious gardens and everything was made on slave labor, and it was just, everybody was so rich unless you were a slave. Anyway, and sorry if I have the sniffles. Usually, this happens every single year, if you wanted to know. In the changing of the seasons from fall to winter, I always get a sinus infection, and it's happening again. Anyway, these pamphlets that were written way back when were distributed in banks because they just teach like good money saving, being money wise. What's it called? Being money conscious is something that the banks do, obviously. And so they want their clients to have good money. I don't know. I keep trying to surprise myself into remembering what that phrase is. I can't remember. So anyway, let's get into it. First of all, though, before we get into it, would I recommend this? Yes, I think everybody should read this book. It's honestly a great book. And it's one where it's like, it makes you just want to jump up and just start working. I'll read a couple excerpts where it's like, in order to get money, you have to work for money. And you just kind of get like riled. You're like, okay, let's go work. Let's go make some cash. And this is just something, an interesting little historical side note that I didn't know. And maybe there's a book on Babylon. I'd love to read it. But this says, and I'm sure there is a book on Babylon. That's something that's stupid of me to say. But maybe there's a good book on Babylon. That's the distinction. If there is, let me know. I'd read it. It says, Babylon was never entered by hostile armies until about 540 years after the birth of Christ. Even then, the walls were not captured. The story of the fall of Babylon is most unusual. Cyrus, one of the great conquerors of that period, intended to attack the city and hoped to take its impregnable walls. Advisors of Nabonidus, the king of Babylon, persuaded him to go forth to meet Cyrus and give him battle without waiting for the city to be besieged. In the succeeding defeat to the Babylonian army, it fled away from the city. Cyrus, thereupon, entered the open gates and took possession without resistance. Thereafter, the power and prestige of the city gradually waned until, in the course of a few hundred years, it was eventually abandoned, deserted, left for the winds and storms to level once again to that desert earth from which its grandeur had originally been built. Babylon had fallen, never to rise again, but to it civilization owes much. The eons of time have crumbled to dust, the proud walls of its temple, but the wisdom of Babylon endures. Anyways, super interesting. I didn't know that. So if there's like a story of, because obviously we don't know the mysteries of Babylon. Do we? I don't know. I'd love to read about them if we do. Okay, and let me just read a couple of these. Again, it's a pamphlet. And I would recommend this to everybody unless the like old-timey speak bothers you, because this is written, like, let me just open to a random page. To many I say no, yet sometimes it would be easier to say yes. Can one refuse to share with one sister to whom he is deeply devoted? Surely thy own sister, blah, blah, blah. You know, you get it. It's like, I know that bothers some people. I have a coworker who won't even read like Huckleberry Finn because of the deep Southern accent. So if old-timey speak bothers, don't read, because the whole thing is kind of written like that. So now you know. And now, as I read some of these excerpts, you're going to be forewarned. In the foreword, though, this is actually something very cool, a quote that I underlined. It says, our acts can be no wiser than our thoughts. Our thinking can be no wiser than our understanding. I'll read it again for emphasis. Our acts can be no wiser than our thoughts. Our thinking can be no wiser than our understanding. Ponder on that. Learning was of two kinds. Okay, I'm just jumping into this too fast. All of these pamphlets, he tells them, oh, I think I read. Oh, no, I didn't. In the back again, when it kind of explains more about it, it says, using parables set in ancient Babylon to make each of his points. That was an incomplete sentence, but I just highlighted or underlined the last half of the sentence. So there you go. It follows this guy who lives in ancient Babylon, and he goes around and he talks with other people, and those people kind of unfold to him like parables on wealth and money and lessons in them. So that's kind of how the book is laid out in the pamphlets. And then in the pamphlets, there's this guy, his name starts with an A, and it has a K in it, but I can't remember what it is. Maybe it'll come up on one of these pages. Okay. So these are just some of the lessons that I'm just gonna read. But that's basically my review of it. I think it's honestly a really good, really interesting compilation of pamphlets. I didn't know that it wasn't technically a book, but more of a accumulation of papers, maybe. Which, I don't know, maybe it is a book. It says, this one, learning was of two kinds, the one kind being things we learned and knew, and the other being the training that taught us how to find out what we do not know. Very interesting as well. Learning comes in two types. Like, this is one where it kind of just expands your brain a little bit. Just a little bit, but it does expand it. The first principle that it teaches is to keep all of, and this is very simple to say, but harder to do. Keep a part of all that you earn. And it says, keep 1/10 of all that you earn. That's the first principle, because then you'll just accumulate wealth. And it says, there's another part here that I highlighted. What each of us calls our necessary expenses will always grow to equal our income unless we protest to the contrary. So if you are saving and you're living below your means, because I know it's flashy to like buy experiences and buy expensive things, but if you live below, like if you save 10%, in 10 years you'll have an entire year's salary saved, is what the first pamphlet goes over. So, and I think that's true. You know, if you make more money, the immediate inclination is to spend more money. So very interesting to think about. Another little thing that he says, Georgie, I urge all men to be in the front rank of progress and not to stand still. It says preceding accomplishment must be desire. And something interesting too is that he talks about how the wealth in Babylon was not a zero-sum game. Just because somebody had a lot of money doesn't mean that you couldn't have a lot of money. Because just wealth came to Babylon as a whole. It's so interesting to think about. I don't think life is a zero-sum game either. It says, there is more gold in Babylon, my students, than thou dreamest of. There is abundance for all. And I think that's true. In the world, we obviously don't live in Babylon, unless I don't even know where ancient Babylon is currently located, unless somebody lives where that is. We don't live in Babylon, but I don't think wealth is a zero-sum game. And I hope all of my subscribers prosper, and I mean that. This one that I have highlighted says, in tilling the soil and honest trading, in all of men's occupations, there is an opportunity to make a profit. Perhaps not all the time will he be rewarded, because sometimes the judgment may be faulty, or other times the winds and the weather may defeat his efforts. Yet, if he persists, he may usually expect to realize his profit. This is so because the chances of profit are always in his favor. Wow. Like, doesn't that just want to make you stand up and post your 13th video to a failing YouTube channel? Because that's how I'm feeling. So, we're persisting. One thing about what we're doing is we're persisting. And I encourage everybody to persist. It says, opportunity waits for no man. Today it is here, soon it is gone. Good luck waits to come to that man who accepts opportunity. To the building of an estate, there must always be a beginning. So start building that estate right now. Right now. Also, something that I thought was interesting was the importance, and this is actually my last little highlight that I have, the importance of education. We talked about how learning comes in two types. Learning how to ask the right questions, learning how to learn what you don't know, and learning what's taught to you. And it says, this last quote that I'll read, just so it is with the sons of men, give them a choice of gold and wisdom. What do? Ignore the wisdom and waste the gold. On the morrow they wail because they have no more gold. Gold is reserved for those who know its laws and abide by them. To me, that says, Carson, don't drop out of college. I don't know what it says to you, but that's what it says to me. And so that's why we're here in this classroom on a 5:30 p.m. on a Saturday, because I have midterms next week. That is my review on The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. Some really good things in here. I'd recommend this to anybody. Everybody should probably read this. It makes you money smart. Money, I still can't remember that phrase. So yeah, let me know if you've read this before. It's a very old book, but I think it's pretty popular still. I don't know who recommended that I read it. Maybe it just was mentioned in passing. And then, because the way that my to be read list works, if you were wondering, is if somebody recommends me a book, I'll add it. If I believe in their judgment, like if they have bad taste, and I know they have bad taste and they recommend me a book, I'm not gonna read it. But if it's somebody that I trust and they recommend it, I'll read it. I'll add it to the list. The list right now, you guys, is probably 150 books long, but we'll get to them eventually. So I can't remember who recommended this to me or if it was just mentioned in passing. But I added it to the list. Years later, I read it, and now I'm making this video. I hope everybody has a great Saturday. I need to get back to studying, and shout out everybody. What? Shout out my subscribers, specifically. Should we make a stand name? Somebody come up with a clever one. You know what? I'm just gonna shut up. Ciao.